Hello! In this tutorial series, I'm going to be showing how to make stylized animated text systems in Unreal Engine 5 that will look something like this. You can make whatever animations you want. I went a bit silly with it, uh, but we'll be using font materials and widget animations for this. This will be a three-part series. The first part will be just setting up the typewriter effect with regards to character per character animation functionality that we'll need later on for part 2, where we'll go over style tags and create a style tag system. And then part 3, where we'll basically just wrap things up, cover font materials, and actually implement all the animations in there. So yeah, we'll get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is open up our content drawer and just create a new widget blueprint. We'll just call this dialog. Then we want to open that up and add a canvas first thing. And then next what we're going to be adding is a wrap box. Then this box is basically going to be the text box. Make this whatever size that you need for that to happen. I'll just set it to be something like that for now. And go ahead and name this. Then we want to make sure we check this is variable. That way we can access it in the graph, which we'll now head to. And we won't need any of these, but we will want to create a custom event, which I will call type dialog. And this event will be what is called by other actors to start typing the dialogue. And because of that, we'll have to have certain parameters in the inputs here. I'm going to name this one given dialog solo for when we want to call a one-off dialog. And I'll also create an array of strings called given dialog array. Go ahead and compile and save that. And in our graph itself, let's also create a boolean, which I will call typewriter running. And this will just check whether or not it is currently typing out text or not. Okay, so we're just going to get some things started off here. First, we'll go ahead and set this up with an if statement here, because we do not want this to start typing any more dialogue if it's already typing. So we'll have to pull off of the false branch for everything we do next here. The next thing I would like to do is distinguish whether or not we're going to be doing a solo or an array. And a quick way to do that is to just check if the solo is empty. Because if it is empty, that means we will be using the array instead. I'm also just going to create another boolean so that we have information later on to let us know that we are typing an array and not just a solo. Next, what we want to do is take these parameters we've been given and create variables out of them. For the solo, this is called input text. And for the array, it will be called input array. like that. I'm going to reroute these a little bit to look a little prettier. It's always good to keep these things organized. That'll do just fine. We're going to go ahead and create another custom event. Which I will call type text timer. Now the purpose of this will be called every couple milliseconds, and it will type out a new character. So we'll have more stuff to add in this event, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and connect these dots a little bit here. We'll try to build it up a little. So far, all we've done is when we want to start typing dialogue, we will make sure that dialogue is not already being typed. And if that's the case, we will distinguish whether or not we want to use a solo text or an array. So after we've distinguished this, we have set these two variables here and called our event to actually type it out. So we'll go ahead and create a branch here. And we'll also need to create a new variable that will be used as an index to sort through these, which I will call letter index. Make sure that's an integer. And we'll make sure that the letter index is less than, if we get input text here, we want it to be less than the amount of characters in this string. Luckily, there's already an event for that. Character array from string. Then we will get the length of that and hook it up. And the next thing we'll do is create another new variable. It will be a string, and this will be called next letter. And all this really is we will be getting from the character array from string the current letter index. And we just want to expose that to its own variable. Now, if you followed along this far, you might be wondering, how do we display the text if all we have is a wrap box? And because our end result is to have each character be animated on its own, what we'll have to do is use this wrap box and have widgets for every character to be typed out in. So we still need to make one more widget blueprint that we will make right quick. We'll just create a new one. I'm going to call this one letter character. And this one will be super simple to make because all we need is a rich text block. We don't need a canvas. In fact, if you place a canvas here, it will mess it up and it will not work as it should. We just need this rich text block here. I'll go ahead and give it a name. Character text seems fine. And what we'll do is, in this type text timer, we will create that widget. And then we'll need a reference to our dialog wrap box up here, which is why we made it a variable earlier. And we will add a child to the panel widget, which will be this widget. We'll also want to be able to set the text here. So we'll go ahead and drag out of this and get our character text. And then we will have to make sure we set that text. For now, we can just set it to be our next letter. This will change later. What we'll go ahead and do next is add our delay. I'm just going to set this to be, let's do 0.1. And after this delay is finished, we will grab our letter index and increment it by 1. Afterwards, we will call this same event again. And this event will run until this is false, when the letter index is longer than the amount of text that we have. Once it's done typing, what we'll go ahead and do is take our dialog wrap box and we'll clear all the children, which will remove all of the characters and clean up the memory. Afterwards, we will check to see if we were actually typing an array. If we're not typing an array, we can go ahead and set our typewriter running to false. And good to note here that we have never set this to be true just yet. Let's go ahead and put that over here. So that way, this will only run once until it's ready again. Now, if we are typing an array, I'm going to create a new integer, which I will call dialog index. And after this has been incremented, we will then check with our input array that we've already taken note of, and we'll compare it with the length of it. So if our dialog index is greater than or equal to the length of the array, and be sure we put that into an if statement. If this is true, then it will go right back down to here. If this is false, we'll just go ahead and set our input text to be our input array at the index of the new dialog index. Because that will be the new line that we want to type out. And we'll go ahead and clean up our next letter, set that to be null, as well as our letter index, which we will reset to 0. Then we will once again call the type text timer. I also had forgotten a step up here, I believe, where the input text, when using an array from the start, should be set to be the base one here. And also worth noting is this given dialog solo is not really needed at all. I like having it as an option. That way when calling the event, if I just have one line, I can just type it there. But you could also just make a new array and have just one string in there with the make array. And you can just plug your string into here and plug the array in. And since the array only has one in there, it'll run fine. I think it's good to have this as an option though. Right there in the node. We'll go ahead and connect that back up. And something else that we'll need to do is set our dialog index at 0, just to ensure that it's been reset properly before we start sifting through the dialogues again. Also worth noting is the way we have it set up right now is once it's finished, it will just immediately clear the children. So we'll go ahead and create a system to where the text will not disappear until the player inputs to move on to the next line of text. I'm going to go ahead and comment here. We'll do finished / exiting typing. Yeah. And we'll go ahead and give ourselves some more room here. And I'm going to start off with a short delay because if you add in functionality to hold or tap the button to speed up the text, you want to have a short window of time where they will not just immediately skip past the text at the end, because then they won't be able to read it. So you want to include a short window here. I'm going to make mine 0.6. We're going to push this back even further. What we're going to be doing is having a branch where the false will enter a delay until next tick. So this will be a condition where while the player's in this dialogue state, we'll just be waiting until they're ready to move on. And this is where we would input if they have their certain input being pressed. Right now, I don't have a reference to the character. I will probably go ahead and do that. This is how I'm going to do it. Obviously, instead of third-person character, you would use whatever your player controller is for your input. Inside this third-person character blueprint, this is the button input that I have assigned for my text inputs. So I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to make a variable. I'll just do text input live. And if they start, set it true. If they cancel or complete, set it to false. Now, you will not be able to just use this here because this widget blueprint is not connected to the player controller. So this will never return properly, which is why I had to create a Boolean here. I'll just go ahead and promote that to variable, and I'll just name it player. What I'm also going to do is create the dialog widget in the first place. It is not created right now. And for simplicity's sake for the tutorial, I'm just going to do this right in here. Okay, I'll go ahead and add a begin play. Oh, looks like they have one already. I'll just do that up here. So we'll go ahead and create the dialog widget. Then we want to add that to the viewport. And we'll also want to promote this to a variable. It's going to do it like this. And the reason for that is so that we can call our type dialog event. Test text. This is a test. That'll do for now. Okay, so now we have our dialog widget actually being created and added to the screen. We have our Boolean for our actual input, which can be accessed from our dialog. You could get this however you want for the input. For the purposes today, this is the way that I found that works best. Because now we can just get it right here. So now, once it's finished and this delay has happened and they have pressed the input, it will then move on to clear the children. Let's go ahead and see what we're looking like here. As you can see, it types out in these weird letter block looking shapes. And once I hit my input again, it disappears. Now this is normal. This is where you should be at. Do not worry. This is fine. And the text will pop up until I press T. So next video, I will explain why these letter blocks pop up and how we can replace that with our own text. And once we have our text popping up there, that's when we can really dive into creating the animations, and you can do anything you want to make it as stylized as you want once we get to that point. But that'll do it for today. I'll have the next one up immediately, so go ahead and watch that.